Penn State lost to Temple after 74 years. Is it going to be 115 years? The last time they lost to Buffalo in 1900? I don't think so. Todd?
Penn State appeared bigger. They looked stronger. They were probably faster. But last Saturday, Temple showed right now they are a much better team.
It's bounce back week for the Nittany Lions, and the blue-white tailgate presented by Coors Light is next. And we welcome everyone to the blue-white tailgate presented by Coors Light. Steve Jones, Trey, Bauer, Todd, Sadowski. We'll get right into it with Frankly Speaking, presented by Blaze Alexander Family Dealerships. James Franklin knows that things have to be much better this week.
We'll watch the film, be very, very honest with ourselves, including myself, look in the mirror, be very critical, look at areas that we need to fix, look at areas that we need to get better at.
What happened?
Ooh, that's a loaded question, isn't it? Where do we start? I'm just glad there's a mandatory cooling off period for this show so that we don't go right after the game is over with. How about 9 first downs, 5 in the first quarter, 4 the rest of the way, the final 3 quarters. We thought this was an experienced line, so a lot of it is going to the offensive line. We thought they were experienced and would be able to handle it, but really Temple just controlled them up front on both sides of the ball. We talked about the offensive line issues, but really they were able to run the ball on the defensive line as well. And it certainly did not help when Naeem Wortman-White went out of the game.
Yeah, no question about that. Yeah, and they ran the ball, but although they were very smart as to how they ran the ball. They ran the ball against the dime package and 3-down linemen most of the time. That's where they picked their spots, and I thought they were smart as to how they attacked it.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, and the fact is that they had a very solid game plan coming in. You know, don't underestimate the fact that Matt Rule played here. He's got some guys on his staff that are Penn State guys. They know the personnel, and I think it really showed.
All right, let's go to the update desk. Important information from Andrew Kalista.
Some important information indeed, Steve. First, the parking lots. Penn State has decided to make changes to the ADA lots as we take a look at our handy-dandy map provided by the university. Around the softball field is back as a disabled lot. Overflow will go to the east deck and the Cats lot. Also, some changes on exits for fans parking in lot 12 and the Brown lots. Go to gopsusports.com for more information. The depth chart looks very similar this week. The one change, Gary Wooten in at middle linebacker and freshman linebacker Jake Cooper backing him up. Your Health South injury update board, Adam Bredeman with the serious knee issue. I personally don't expect to see him the rest of the season. Grant Haley and Brandon Bell should be probable for Saturday. Penn State wasn't the only football-related team to have some issues in the opening week. The Kansas State band, well, they had some issues of their own at halftime. Apparently trying to make the USS Enterprise smash into a Jayhawk. Some people were offended. Take a look and judge for yourself. Personally, I don't see the problem. Come on, America, get your mind out of the gutter. And yes, I did blur that image for dramatic effect. Out to Hawaii we go. The officiating crew apparently has some butter on their fingers. How hard is it to spot the ball, especially when the game's on the line? I mean, really. Time runs out, and that is how this one would end. The Buffs cannot get a snap off for the go-ahead touchdown. Shameful on the officials' part, indeed. Finally, guys, you cannot sugarcoat it. The fans are unhappy. The former players, they're unhappy as well. Gary Gilliam pretty much summing it up, calling the offense against Temple lackluster. Adam Gress taking it a step further, specifically mentioning John Donovan. Also, one fan tweet that I found comparing the offensive line to rearranging the furniture on the Titanic. While funny, that's cold even for me. And that is your blue-white tailgate update.
All right, thank you, Andrew. All right, so let's take a look at how the game broke down on Saturday. We start with the first quarter. The first quarter numbers, great. The rest of the game, guys, wow. Wow.
Not so good.
Yeah. Minus 12 yards rushing. I mean, that's in part because of the sacks along the way. Penn State had 162 yards on first down, only 12 in the other 2 downs combined. Your thoughts as to what you saw?
Well, I think that for Penn State that they, it's a kind of a first game jitter kind of thing, the way I would think about it. I mean, you kind of have to play and let the flow of the game kind of unfold. I think that after the first quarter, they kind of got out of whack and they really didn't make the adjustments that they needed to make. And again, Temple's a very well-coached team. They played well.
Trey, you make a great point about that. And Tyler Matakavich at the end of the game had said, Coach Rule told them Penn State will score on the first drive, and they'll probably score on the second drive. And after that, you can relax. It was a fortune teller. Yeah. The way it worked out, and Temple with an experienced team just relaxed and got it done.
And for safety Jordan Lucas, they decided to take matters into their own hands.
Coming off a very tough loss, one thing that the captains did, we brought everybody up after the coaches got off the field. And one thing that we did is we buried the tape. We buried the tape, actually buried the tape. With a shovel on the practice field, right where we walk out, we buried it. To kind of give us that positive energy back and, have a little fun with it. So we buried the tape and Temple's over. We're on to Buffalo.
And speaking of on to Buffalo, Buffalo won its opener. Penn State, doesn't matter who they're playing this week, does it?
No, I mean, it doesn't. The fact is that Penn State has to come back. They have to rebound. They have to be aggressive. I think it's really, really important for them to get off to a fast start. If they don't get off to a fast start, I think they're going to have problems.
Well, motivation should not be an issue. And let's be more accurate. It was more like they buried the DVD, right, or deleted the files. They buried the tape. It was interesting. I think that's a neat concept for those guys symbolically to get past the game. As you mentioned, Trey, we're going to talk about schemes and that type of stuff, but they had better just show up motivated and ready to play.
And that's what Jordan Lucas says they need to do. That's a big part of this week for them.
It's very important for us to come out here and play complementary football, to play, very competitive football, and to go back and watch the film on Sunday and say, we did everything that we are supposed to. That's the most important thing for us. So we want to make sure our communication piece is perfect on offense and defense. And as long as we're on the same page, nothing else really matters.
And we'll take a look at the Penn State offense when we come back. Not a lot of room to operate for 14 in that game as Penn State lost the opener to Temple 27-10, which gets us right into our Stocker Chevrolet Drive of the Game, brought to you by Stocker Chevrolet, located on the Benner Pike across from the Nittany Mall. And it's that sequence of the game where in a 9-play span, Christian Hackenberg was sacked 4 times by the Temple defense. Temple blitz, they did a great job on cover 0. Their press coverage was outstanding. Wide shot here, as you can see, he's taken down there. Tyler Matakevich had a big game for Temple in this one. Number 8, Ioannidis had a great game. Number 9, and here's the 4th one in the sequence coming up right here. Not a lot of time to even step up into the pocket, guys, and Matakevich finished them off, and that's part of it. There really was not a lot of room to operate. Fair enough?
Yeah, absolutely, and there's not a lot of guys coming to the rescue. Coach Franklin, after the game, said, look, we literally said, this is our best 5. We're putting them on the field. He also said Paris Palmer, the left tackle, looked like he was playing in his first game of major college football, and communication was an issue for these guys. Temple would either disguise it, Hackenberg would check early, then they would disguise and come at him, and they'd also cover all the offensive linemen at some point. Temple said, we wanted to go one-on-one, and it looked like they could not handle the guys one-on-one. And when everyone has to hold their man, they had an issue with that, and they could not do it.
Let's take a look at the sack numbers from the opening game of the season as to how it played out. And there are the sack numbers over the past few years. And you can see in that span, they gave up 56 sacks. And, of course, the last couple of years, obviously, the struggle last year with 44 and obviously 10 sacks in the opening game. Is it all the offensive line, Trey, or is it more to it than that?
Well, I mean, to me, a lot of it's on the offensive line. I mean, the kid, it's like Groundhog Day all over again. I mean, I was more concerned with Christian Hackenberg's mother and what she was thinking in the stands as her son's getting drilled. I mean, the fact is that they have to protect better. They have to figure out a way. We talked about this last year. They didn't get it done last year for most of the season. They certainly didn't get it done against Temple. And it's got to be a come-to-Jesus moment for them.
And it's not just the 44 sacks from last year. There are also 83 hits he took last year along the way. So James Franklin sat down, talked about offensive line and changes.
I don't know if you're necessarily going to see, a bunch of new starters. I think you're going to, possibly see some guys move around and things like that. Wendy, he's a guy that could figure in for us as well. Chance Sorrell's a guy that could possibly figure in for us as well. But I think more than anything, I think you're just going to see some moving parts. But
you're over there, Trey. You called defenses in your lifetime. You're trying to give false pre-reads and so forth. What about pre-snap reads, and how important is that for an offense trying to figure out what you're doing?
Well, I think it's really important. The fact is that I thought that they were going to play better because they all played a lot last year. But the fact is they didn't play well last year. We're all hoping that they were going to play better this year because of the experience. It definitely throws you off, and Penn State didn't react well to it.
The Family Clothesline Offensive Player of the Week, running back Akeel Lynch, who had 10 carries for 78 yards in the game. Here's Lynch breaking through into the secondary and getting cut down there in that 16-yard run right there. And then, of course, Lynch did score Penn State's touchdown, capping a 10-play, 75-yard drive with this 42-yard run, his 6th career touchdown run for Akeel Lynch, our Family Clothesline Offensive Player of the Week. Did, Todd, they run the ball enough in the game?
Well, when he only gets 10 carries, the answer's got to be no. A part of that was the sacks, putting them in difficult down and distance situations. I didn't think that they did enough to get to the edges as well. You got a pro-style quarterback in Christian Hackenberg, and Temple talked about they're going to pressure them up the middle. So we tried to run through the middle. We did use Brandon Polk around the jet sweep a couple of times that were successful, but they really didn't do enough to get to the edges, and the down and distance situation really, really hurt them in the second half to not get the ball to Lynch.
So how do you fix things?
Well, I think one thing to do is, there are a lot of things that can go wrong when you're trying to throw the ball. You can get sacked, you can throw an interception, you can put the ball on the ground. And it's much easier to run block than it is to pass block. Pass blocking is kind of more art than it is science, and the fact is that, to have the guys go after them and try to establish the run early, I think is really important.
James Franklin says maybe getting the ball downfield could help.
Continuing to run the ball. Obviously the more success that you have running the ball, it makes it easier to continue doing that. But I think we can run the ball more. I think we can move the pocket more. There are things that I think that would be helpful for us, for a lot of different reasons. And I think we got to be able to take more shots. I think, when they're going to load the box up and play cover 1 and cover 0 and play press man and outnumber you in the box, you have to be willing to take shots down the field.
They really did get one quality shot downfield, and that's when Christian Hackenberg overthrew to Deshaun Hamilton. Trey, have you ever been in this situation before?
Yeah, actually, it was the entire 85 season. We were 11-0, played the national championship, and then our offense completely laid an egg in the Orange Bowl. So, the fact is that you have to kind of stick together. You can't get ahead of yourself, and you got to believe in the guys in the locker room. And I think that's going to be really important to see how they bounce back this week.
Todd, did you see separation as you watched the game by wideouts?
Well, not a lot of it, no, and we didn't even really see really good spacing either. Some of the patterns kind of ran into each other, which brings the defenders together. So, look, it's all a combination of things. And one of the things that, as we dissect this, one of the things that I'm going to look for the rest of the year, this is just one game, and I want to see as the year goes on, how much of this was Temple and how much of this was Penn State, because I'm sure a lot of it was Temple had a really good game plan, they executed well, and Penn State was really, really off their game. So I want to see exactly how this plays out as the year goes on, but it was certainly not a good start for the offense.
Coming up, we'll take a look at the defense as we continue with the Blue White Tailgate presented by Coors Light. Yes, Temple had some plays against the Penn State defense, but Temple also ran 64 plays in the game, 2 sacks, 13 tackles for losses. That's 15 of the 64 plays being negative plays, 23%. So there were some things, but when Naeem White went out of the game, guys, that changed everything. You played that spot. Why is that spot so critical to what a defense does? Not just from that spot, but fanning out?
Well, I mean, the fact is that he's playing in the middle. He is the guy who's the quarterback of the defense. He has to make the adjustments. First of all, he has to get the signals and call the defenses. Then he's got to get everybody lined up properly. The fact is, this is the first year he was doing it. There was some question of how he was going to do for the first game. Then he gets hurt, and they put a new kid in, and he doesn't really know what he's doing. I mean, it was just a downhill, bad situation.
And Temple, Todd had some yards after the catch. What about tackling?
Well, tackling was an issue, and we talked about how they ran sometimes on 3rd and long. And if you get that first man on the guy and bring him down short, they get him off the field. So tackling was an issue for sure. 7 of 17 Temple was on 3rd down conversions. Last year, one of the worst teams on 3rd down in the country. This time, 7 of 17. Penn State only 2 of 13. And 36 minutes time of possession. So the guys wore down in the second half as well. They couldn't get off the field.
All right, let's get into this. A lot of people like to put people into bubble wrap, in that you can only do one thing. People have asked, why is he on special teams? So why is he on special teams?
Well, I mean, I think it's ridiculous because he's a really good player. I mean, the fact is that you're going to have your best. I mean, it's offense, defense, and the kicking game. You're going to put your best guys in the position that's going to help you the most. The fact is he's a very good player. He can cover. He's a physical guy. And why would he be playing on the special teams?
Right. Your thoughts on that?
I don't have any issues with putting your best players on special teams. I mean, it's one extra play, right? It's one extra play out there for him. There is depth issue for this particular team. Some people may point to that. But I don't have a problem putting your best guys out there on special teams. You're trying to get the man down as quickly as possible, and he can do it.
Paul Posluszny played on special teams. Dan Connor played on special teams. And everyone cheered up and down when Michael Motti made one special teams tackle after another against Illinois. Look, you can't have it both ways. Urban Meyer plays his starters on special teams. And there's also a situation called punt safe. In punt safe, you keep your starters on the field except for the return guy, unless your return guy is a safety. Simple as that. I mean, everybody cheered when Mark Robinson ran one back against Rutgers for a touchdown. That was punt safe as well. The entire starting defense was out there at the same time. All right, so now replacing it. Wooten struggled a bit at times. Your thoughts on watching Gary play?
My thoughts are that I hope he gets a lot better really, really quick.
Yep.
He's a guy who has kind of been around the program. He's been around the program. He should know what to do at this point in his career. And it's going to be interesting to see if he can do it.
And you know who one of the guys that's going to help him get better? Naeem Wortman-White. Hanging around. He's already looking at film with them. He's already going over stuff with the guys. And he's going to lead by example and lead off the field as well, which is a credit to him.
Yep. And Jordan Lucas knows that a Naeem Wortman-White very difficult to replace.
I'm very confident in both of them. I don't know what coach's decision is, who's going to fill that Mike linebacker position, but either one of them, they have great communication. They know their assignments, and, we're just going to rally around whoever it is.
And communication, we talked about this earlier. Communication is a key, but it's not just from his spot. It also means Jordan Lucas in that safety spot has to step up communication-wise. Fair enough?
I think it's like if you think about it, so you've got a new guy who's calling the plays and calling defenses. You've got Jordan Lucas who moved from corner to safety. He's in a new spot. I mean, this is all new, and you can't underestimate how important that is.
So Jordan Lucas on the communication issues and what needs to be corrected.
Going back to the drawing board. The way we fix communication issues is going back to the drawing board, making sure that, we're in the film room communicating with each other. That's where it starts off. And going out to the field and executing the calls the right way and making sure everybody has eyes on one another so we get the signal, because sometimes it's loud. Like we're here, when we're on defense, we can't hear a thing. So we have to pay attention to each other's eyes and signals that we give one another.
And now let's get to our family clothesline defensive player of the week. He had 10 tackles in the game. Number 95, Carl Nassib, our family clothesline defensive player of the week. Big sack here by 95. He just had, it's an overused term about the motor going, but he plays full energy all out.
This was an easy choice, wasn't it? Nasty Nassib. He went after him, and he was a threat. You mentioned all those negative plays, and he was a big part of that, blowing up the edges on the defensive side of the ball and on the defensive line. And Temple really had issues controlling him during the game.
Yeah, I mean, I think, he's a classic, old school Penn State guy. He's a preferred walk-on. He's worked his rear end off. He's gotten in the position where he's bigger and faster and stronger now. He got a shot and he took advantage of it.
It's like how on TV you just cleaned up. That's just great the way you did that. That's terrific. All right, okay. What can they do now with that Buffalo front? You got a good quarterback, which we're going to talk about here in a few moments. But what about this defensive front against the Buffalo front?
Well, I think first of all, you had 10 returning starters for Temple. I mean, they've got to replace 6 starters. They went from a 3-4 to a 4-3. Leipold is going to change his scheme. I think that we really need to take the ball and just run it down their throats.
All right. So now let's get to our hit of the week. Our hit of the week. This is the turnover, and actually the turning point of the game, in my opinion. Penn State, Brandon Bell with the big hit. Torrance Brown recovers it. The reason I consider the turning point, this is a 10-0 game. You get the ball at the 43-yard line. There's a 3 and out when you have a chance to make it 17 max, or maybe even at minimum 13-0 with a first down. And they went 3 and out. Then they started from the 7, went the other way, 93 yards. And suddenly that was a 14-point swing in the game, as far as I'm concerned, right there.
And one of the few turnovers. I mean, that was the chance right there. Yep. We didn't take the ball away very often, and that was the chance for them to try and punch in another one.
Well, we've mentioned Buffalo a few times. Now it's a chance to get in and talk about the Bulls, who won their opener over Greg Gattuso's team, Albany 51-14, led by former Nittany Lions quarterback DJ Crook. We'll talk about the Bulls as we continue with the Blue White Tailgate. Buffalo is expected to win their opener over Greg Gattuso's Albany team, quarterbacked by DJ Crook. They won it 51-14. They did the expected, probably didn't have to show a lot in doing it. In talking to some people there, they'll tell you right away that even though they may be projected as number 5 in the MAC East, they feel that they may be one of the top 3 offenses in the overall MAC. Your thoughts on seeing this team?
Well, I mean, it's going to be interesting to see how they do. I mean, they've got a new coaching staff. It's their first year. They really took it to Gattuso's team, which is unfortunate for him. But, it'll be interesting to see how we react. But I guarantee you this, after watching the Temple tape, I mean, they think they got a chance to win.
Sure, of course they do.
Yeah, well, they're going to go after us. They do have a lot of guys they need to replace on the defensive side of the ball. And Coach Leipold, that's his side. He loves defense. So he's going to have some tricks up his sleeve. He's got a line that's in disarray right now. So he's going to be coming straight at the offensive line. The offensive pressure's on it. How much more talented are we? We're going to find out. Can we just simply impose our will on the team? We'll find out.
Every time I broadcast a game, I'll put a chart together on every team. And, of course, I have to put the coach's name down and their record. And, of course, remember, for years I put Joe Paterno's name down and that record for years. I have never once put down a chart with a record of 110-6. Lance Leipold, file on him. What a job he did at Wisconsin Whitewater. Wow, 110-6. I mean, unfortunately, Mount Union exists. That's the only dumbass for being undefeated. So obviously, it looks like a great hire for them. And he starts out with a great starting point with a quarterback that won't play in the pros. But you know what? This kid, Joe Licata, this is a good college quarterback. He knows how to play.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, he's a career touchdown leader for Buffalo. He's entering his last year. I mean, he's a very, very good college player. He can throw the ball around. He's got an experienced running back. I mean, it's going to be fun to watch him.
2 things to know about Licata. One, he's a senior, right? Those senior college quarterbacks, they're good decision makers. 8 guys caught the ball.
Yeah.
That's good decision making, right? Finding the guy that's open, spreading the wealth a little bit, and making sure the defense has a lot of weapons that they have to cover.
Yeah, just because a guy's not a, quote, pro quarterback potential doesn't mean they can't be a really good college quarterback. This is a good college quarterback. You mentioned career touchdown leaders, 62 of them in his career so far at Buffalo. Ron Willoughby talked about the size there at Todd without question, and they also went to the tight end Mason Schreck, but he has a running game to go with this. Before we get to that, though, that wide receiver size that Todd talked about, Jordan Lucas talked about countering the wideout size.
Defense, and they do have a lot of size. They have a quarterback that has record-setting numbers at the University of Buffalo, and we want to challenge them. We definitely want to challenge them with our front 7, and locking up routes on the outside. And you know, their big targets are going to be a challenge for us. So we're looking forward to that.
And they have a running game. Anthony Taylor, 1,000-yard rusher, back, big game, opening game, 17th career 100-yard rushing game, so they have some balance, Trey.
Yeah, I mean, they absolutely do. I mean, they got a kid who can throw the ball. He's a 3-year starter, career. We just talked about that. You got a kid who rushed for 1,000 yards, and he's a tough running back. I mean, Penn State really I mean, I can't stress enough. They really have to go out and they got to take it to them. They got to do a bunch of 3-and-outs to start the game if they're on defense. And they really need to, as Todd would say, impose their will.
Well, and these are supposed to be confidence builders, right? You put them on the schedule. It's the home opener at Beaver Stadium. You want to build a little bit of confidence. But Ron Willoughby, 6'5", Shrek, 6'5". Willoughby, 15 yards a catch, can make some big plays. Anthony Taylor, a junior. He's back there, 210 pounds, so he's going to pound it through the middle. Guy's also got a lot of speed, so they've got some weapons we got to look out for.
Now, the next part is the defensive part. They have been a 3-4 defense. He is transitioning to what he wants to play. That's a 4-3 defense, which means he hasn't recruited yet. He only has one recruiting class in that is thinking about a 4-3 scheme. So what are the things that you have to do, Trey, when you maybe were an outside linebacker before, but now you have to play a defensive end spot?
Well, I think it's really important that you have to play with confidence. You have to play with high energy, and you have to play with a lot of confidence. I'm sure you don't go 110-6 because you're not a good coach. I mean, he's a great coach. I'm sure he's coaching those guys up, and it's about getting confidence and playing at 100%.
I'll tell you what I like is that they're on the schedule this year, because in the future, I mean, say that record again, 110 and 6. 110 victories, 6 losses. I'm glad we're catching Buffalo now. And I keep saying we and are, like I'm running out there on the field.
You're not running out there.
No, I'm glad the Lions are catching them now before they get going, this program.
I wonder how he felt after the 6.
Oh my God, the program's in ruins. We've lost 6 games in 10 years.
They have a couple guys that can really play for them. Okezie Alozie and the outside linebacker. Also, they benefit from a couple of transfers from UAB, including Colin Lisa, who's not only a wideout but also returns punts for them as well. So they benefited from a couple of UAB transfers when they temporarily disbanded the program.
He's going to find players that want to play for him because of that record. They know he's a winner, and they're going to want to suit up for him.
He is a winner.
He sure is. We're going to hear from him a little bit later when Andrew Kalista talks with him. Coming up next, Andrew sits down with Jay Paterno. We'll go through situation football one by one as we go with Football 101 on the Blue White Tailgate presented by Coors Light.
Welcome back to the Blue White Tailgate Show. Andrew Kalista stepping in for Steve Jones with Coach Jay Paterno. And Coach, we're going inside the film room with Jay Paterno right here. It's early September, which means we're back to school and we're doing some chalk talk with geometry. I was never a big fan of geometry. I hated the proofs my entire sophomore year, but you actually bring it into the football field.
Well, you know, it's one of those things you sit in high school classes and you say, will I ever use this again? And geometry was one of those things for me. In 2008, we were going over some things and reformulating some things we were doing the pass game, and I found myself using the Pythagorean theorem to design some of our pass plays, and because spacing is so important. And anytime you make a play, it's like building a home. You got to make sure the spacing is the way it should be. So we'll take you to the first diagram of one of the plays that we used that year.
Bring that up, right? We're out at Northwestern, right? Darryl Clark is the quarterback.
Absolutely.
And he's throwing an out route here to Graham Zug as we get to that diagram right here on the monitor.
Okay, now, one of the things we wanted to do here is we had to figure out, could this linebacker get to where the throw was going to be before the receiver? So we take this and we say, okay, A squared plus B squared equals C squared. So 14 yards wide, 12 yards deep. And now you realize that he's going to have to run 17.7 yards in the time that the wideout runs about 15 yards. And if it throws on time and the play fake, there's no way he can get there. Now, if we go to the screen save, you'll see the diagram as we would give this to a football player and what they would see in their playbook. You see where that linebacker is lined up for Northwestern. He's very tight to the line. That play fake's going to hold him. We roll to the video, and now you'll see how this works in real time. You see that linebacker, outside linebacker, there's no way he can get under that throw. The ball's thrown on time. You'll see from this end zone shot how tight he is. He's just outside the tight end's shoulder. When the tight end releases, holds him, the play fake holds him, and there you go out there.
Now you bring up the tight end. That's actually Andrew Kalista, and I was impressed with the route combination. He's able to occupy 2 defenders. We go to the second play. It's a little bit different route combination with a flat and a curl pattern out at Illinois with Deion Butler, and Anthony Morelli was under center for that play.
Absolutely. Actually, he was in the gun on this one. But when you look at this diagram, we go to the next one. We have to know a couple things. There's 2 questions. Can our inside receiver get outside of him, the outside receiver, before he hits the 12-yard break? Because he's got to clear this zone for that outside linebacker. So what we do is we look at it and say, okay, let's give him a 9-yard split. We calculate it. He'll run about 11.5 yards to get outside that curl route, which is going to clear it for us. The next thing we want to know is how far is that linebacker going to run? And now by calculating that 10 yards by 7, the square root of 149 is something over 12. So he's got to go a little more than 12 yards, and he's got to play both guys. So we know that he can't handle that. When we go to the screenshot that we have that we give to our football players, you'll see we have a trips formation in the boundary, which forces Illinois to rotate their coverage into the boundary, which gives us a 2-on-1 here with that linebacker. We go to the video, we'll show you how that works. Again, you see the motion gets the secondary from Illinois to come down into the boundary. In our empty set, there's our 2-on-1 outside. We create the 2-on-1, and there's the timing, and there's the throw. Again, you'll see this in the end zone shot, how this works. And you see the minute that the outside motion goes, you see the safety start to adjust. And now we get our 2-on-1, and again, we throw it on time. Nice quick throw, get it out of there, get the first down.
Jay, what was impressive on that play? Derek Williams, you could see drawing the linebacker double team before the pre-snap even took play. So now we're going to go to a game against a very good LSU team. Pay attention to the diagram, folks, and the action. Not necessarily that well-maintained field down at the Capital One Bowl.
Well, one of the things you want to do is you create 2-on-1s. You want to create a 3-on-2. So here we've created a 3-on-2 with a guy going down the seam. And again, we've got to know if this spacing is going to be right. You'll see on the film, we bring our receiver in motion. And one of the things about being in motion, it gives you a rolling start when you come out of your break. So that gives you an extra step or 2 in your route. He's going to run about 11 yards again when this guy hits 12. He gets outside of him. The other thing is defenses don't remain static. So here, they're going to bring a blitz off the edge, and now the strong safety is going to have to come down to play, run, and the flat zone, and now he's got to react, so we have to adjust to that. The last thing you'll see, and we go to the diagram that we have, you'll see the backside safety is also going to rotate over the top, and if he doesn't get over the top, we've got the tight end down the seam. When we go to the video, you'll see that's where we end up. Again, here comes the motion, which gives you a running start. You'll see he's able to clear that curl. Andrew Kalista gets down the seam and makes the catch for a big first down in that game.
I don't know what's prettier, the throw that was delivered right there or actually the field. Now we jump ahead to another Andrew Kalista play against a very good Michigan State team up in East Lansing. It's going to be a wheel route down the sidelines.
Yeah, and what we have here is sometimes you design plays that don't necessarily aren't geometric. What you have is a situation where we know that this coverage, Michigan State like to double up the wideouts. That leaves a linebacker here on this tight end in motion. We brought the tight end in motion a couple times, and he'd come off and block. Now here, a cheap little play fake, because he's got to be responsible for run and pass. And once he sees that play fake and Andrew Kalista stutter steps, he steps up, which leaves him all alone. We'll go to that video, and you'll see it, how it works. Again, here comes Andrew. You watch just a cheap fake by Darryl Clark, just a little stutter step by Andrew Kalista, loses a linebacker, and we're in the end zone. So you'll see the geometry and spacing and all those things are very, very important. And that Pythagorean theorem that you learned in high school that you thought you'd never use again, then you'll never look at football the same way.
It's like the law of perpendicularity, the law of isosceles triangles. I don't even want to get into that. But it's the film room with Coach Jay Paterno. When we come back, it's time for me to sit down and have a chat with the head coach of the Buffalo Bulls, Coach Leipold. Back with the Blue-White Tailgate right after this. Welcome back to the Blue-White Tailgate Show. Great segment there with Jay Paterno, and we welcome to the program right now Lance Leipold, the head coach of the Buffalo Bulls. Coach, thank you so much for taking the time, and congratulations, by the way, on your first win at the D1 level.
Well, thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be with you, and it was a good start to our season, but we know we got a huge task coming on here today.
Coach, the Bulls have been down recently, but you bring in a winning tradition with 6 national titles at the D3 level. What are you trying to bring to the program in upstate New York?
Well, we're trying to build a program that's going to be one of consistency, one that can have the opportunity to compete for an Eastern Division, championship as far as in the Mid-American Conference, and have a chance to be in the championship game of our conference. And we have 5 bowl tie-ins for the Mid-American Conference, and we want to be a school that will be consistently considered for those.
Joe Licata, QB is so important. What does he bring to the table as a senior in that position?
Yeah, definitely. Joe Licata got off to a good start for us. He's an experienced quarterback, been a 3-year starter. He's going to have to make great decisions, getting us in and out of certain things, and we're going to need that from our senior quarterback if we're going to have any chance for success this season.
Looking at Penn State, Coach, Zettel and Johnson in the middle. How do you go about attacking them on Saturday?
Well, I think you have to mix things up a little bit. They're definitely excellent football players, guys you'll see on Sunday someday, and that's going to be a huge test for us. We're pretty young with redshirt freshman James O'Hagan at center. Dylan Guy missed last season for us at the left guard spot, so we're still pretty green in the interior part, and that's going to be a huge challenge. So trying to keep things off balance and give them various types of looks is going to be definitely important for us.
We joked a little bit about this off camera, but you and Coach Borland have to be licking your chops a little bit after watching that Temple film.
Well, we have to be able to get to the quarterback and find ways to do it. Again, Coach Franklin, his staff is an excellent group of coaches, and they're going to find ways to make sure they can protect the quarterback. We've got to find ways to get there and disrupt things. We're going to have to do a great job in the back end and coverage as well. So getting different looks and finding ways is going to be a key to the game as well. But I know any coach in the program is not, when you give up sacks, no one's happy, but it's always going to be the point of emphasis in the next week's preparation.
You guys want to play fast. You want to play in the backfield. Akenzie Alosi, he played there a lot last week. What does he bring to the game after the position switch?
Well, he's somebody that in the previous staff last year used a 3-3-5 concept. He was more of a safety. We moved him down to really an outside linebacker role. He gives us some speed and quickness off the edge, and again, he's a player that's been used in many different ways in his career. He's one of our other captains, and we're going to need him again to be very disruptive and use him in all the different areas that we need to for us to slow down the Penn State offense.
Coach, Penn State's home opener, how important is the first 10 minutes of the ball game for your team?
Well, I think that's important. Anytime you go into an environment like that with a great fan base, great tradition, all those things, if you give reason for those fans to really get into it, and that it can be a long day for an opposing team. If you come out and have some success and get some stops and have some success offensively, then again you might be able to temper that crowd, and hopefully we'll be able to do that on Saturday, because many times you're a heavy underdog in these things, and if it's not going as fast as that crowd may like, then they may get a little less interested, so to speak, and hopefully it can play to your advantage and try to stifle some of that crowd noise.
Coming from Wisconsin Whitewater, there's a lot of talk recently about games like this, games like Penn State versus Temple, and especially games against FCS-level opponents having to go away. What's your opinion on that?
Well, I think these games have to definitely take place. We're an FBS school. We're given 85 scholarships. There's a lot of things to that I think are there, just like they, I think some people are, if the word unrealistic, that you're going to play 12 games against top 25 schools. I don't think that's where it's going to go. The debate could be whether or not you're going to play the FCS schools. I know the Big Ten has decided not to. I mean, that may be further down the pike, and I think what you're going to see in the future is that the playoffs will grow much like they were at the Division III level, where there's 32 teams, and Division II, I think, has 24, and I think that makes for exciting football because you still have to play each and every week. Those games get better and bigger and better in the postseason.
Coach, thanks for taking the time with us today.
Thank you very much for the opportunity to talk about our program.
Folks at home, thanks for dealing with the audio issue right there. Technology, right? Can't live with it, can't live without it. When we come back, we close out the Blue White Tailgate Show.
Time now for the good, the bad, and the ugly. The Saint gets to go first.
2 weeks in a row.
Yes.
What's going on here? Must have paid off the producers or something. How about Northwestern starting with the home victory against Stanford? That's a nice win for the Big Ten program. And look, I don't like to give a lot of love to Ohio State, but the return of Braxton Miller, that guy is unbelievable. 2-time Big Ten Offensive Player of the Year, moved out of the position to play wide out, H-back, whatever they're doing with him. 2 touchdowns over 50 yards, including an amazing spin move against Virginia Tech.
Bad. Well, how about 9, 10, 11? This is all you need to know about Temple. 9 punts, 10 points, 11 sacks. Okay, if Penn State plays that way the rest of the season, it's going to be a really, really long season. You're going to be hoping that Penn State goes 7-6.
Ugly, and we were just talking about this in the break. The official that got hit up top and hit below in the high school game. Ugly. Not good. All right. Let's get to our Big Ten impressions week 1. Big Ten goes 8-6. We know where Penn State fell in that. What do you think about Big Ten week 1?
I was actually surprised that Michigan didn't play better. I was impressed that Ohio State came back the way that they did in the second half. They really kind of put, imposing their will on them. Yeah. I think overall, I think it was a decent start.
Yeah, I mentioned the Northwestern win was a good one.
Yes.
We're going to be talking about a big one coming up for the Big Ten, and Illinois won. Like, Illinois is kind of like my Notre Dame. I'm not a big fan of Illinois, the whole Beckman situation. And
by the way, the Brewer kid, we were talking about good college quarterbacks, had a good handle on the Ohio State game until he got hurt. When he went out, the game ended. All right, let's get to our picks for the week. A segment I always enjoy with Trey. All right, we'll start out with Oregon, Michigan State. I'll let you go ahead.
I hope that Michigan State beats them. The fact that Oregon gave up 45 points to Eastern Washington at home in their opener is embarrassing. Sorry, Phil Knight, but I hope Michigan State wins the game.
All right, so next up will be Oklahoma, Tennessee.
Well, there's some people that like Oklahoma to come out of the Big 12. And they better show it right away. But Tennessee is on the rebound. I used to work in Knoxville. They love their football down there, and they've been down for quite a while. But they've been doing a great job recruiting. We're going to find out if some talent is actually going to show up on the field for the Vols. I think Oklahoma's going to go and get a win, though. Should be a close one.
Todd, you and I now await this moment. Fresno State against Ole Miss. Trey.
What do you mean? It's the cheat bowl. You got Tarkanian, the ghost of Jerry Tarkanian, Fresno State against Ole Miss. All of a sudden, they're top 10 in the country, coming out of nowhere. It's the cheat bowl. I don't really care.
T.S. he does not disappoint, does he?
Yeah, you teed him up. He put it right through the uprights.
All right, Boise State, BYU. BYU coming up that great win. Boise, I listened to that game driving down Friday night. Except for special teams, they own Washington.
How about that? And their former coach came to town, and he left with a loss. Yes. That was a statement from Boise State for that game, and BYU, of course, pulling it out at the end with Nebraska.
Okay, now we get to our keys to the game, and Trey gets us rolling there.
Well, I think the keys to the game is if we lose the toss or we get the ball first, I don't want to see a pass until we don't get a first down. I want to see us literally run the ball down their throats. I'm sorry, Christian Hackenberg. Just hand the ball off to Akeel Lynch, and let's get some first downs and dominate them up front.
And by the way, our keys to the game are brought to you by Aaron's. Look, just go out, play your game. You mentioned running the football, show some balance there defensively. Do some things defensively that get them off rhythm, build a lead, make them come from behind.
If it's close at halftime, I'm looking to see what they do to adjust to the third quarter. There's a lot of heat on the coaching staff right now about their game time adjustments. I want to see what happens in the third quarter if this game is still close.
All right, well, it's game 2 of the season. The old saying, it's not a sprint, it's a marathon. Now they have to build upon whatever and move forward from that first game with the Beaver Stadium Open. Our keys to the game were brought to you by Aaron's. For Todd, Trey, I'm Steve. Thanks for joining us in the Blue White Tailgate presented by Coors Light.